Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this edition of Wave Extra on this Thursday, August 21st. I'm Jose Sosaya, hosting you all as you join us here in the Wave Now studio. Appreciate you checking in with us every night as we unwind and sort of unpack the day's big stories, whether you're tuning in from your Wave Now app on your smart TVs or on your social media channels, which we run the gamut of course. Always appreciate you taking the time as we offer just a different way to connect and sort of look at today's big top stories, developments, updates, those details as you're sort of settling into your Thursday night. Looking forward to the weekend, where, by the way, we've been talking about sort of a fall preview with the storm tracking team. Our thanks to meteorologist Ryan Hoke letting us know that. I'll just set up a little teaser if you haven't taken a look outside of our SkyTrack network, just seeing that blanket of clouds hanging overhead. But here we are at 8:05, still enjoying mid-60s or mid-70s for a lot of us. But we are going to be talking sort of a dip down in those temperatures pretty soon, as Ryan put it, a bit of a fall preview, so something you could look forward to and always check in with on our Wave Now websites and applications, and something we'll definitely discuss tonight on Wave News at 11. But getting to the stories we broke for you this afternoon, we're going to start with one over across the river in southern Indiana in Jeffersonville, where we've now learned longtime police chief says he's stepping down from his position, though he's not leaving the department itself entirely. Kenny Kavanaugh instead is going to be replaced at the top of the department by current Assistant Chief Scott McVoy. If you're familiar with Kavanaugh's path in this particular job, stepped into the chief position back in March of 2016. But again, he's going to stay with JPD as a captain. Kavanaugh, and part of what we're going to play for you tonight is a snippet of a much longer press conference. But in essence, he cited a lot of different reasons. Among those that stood out, though, were, of course, his reference to Indiana's new Senate Bill 1, some conversations with the town council, and a meeting with Mayor Mike Moore as his reasons for stepping away from the role. And Kavanaugh's mentioned, in particular, for as far as Senate Bill 1 is concerned, and the funding uncertainties for police, fire, and EMS. So we're going to play for you an extended portion of now former Chief Kavanaugh's explanation for his stepping aside.
The last 10 years, we've been able to build that and have that be forefront in the relationship that we have. So this has really been great. This is, I'm looking forward with the next chapters and what I'm doing with the department, and to tell you that I feel really good with standing before you today.
In your meeting with the mayor, did he say what went into the decision on his side?
Well, I think we all know that it's all about finances and Senate Bill 1. That's where we are, and there's a lot of things that are occurring with that goalpost, and that's a big, huge factor. With where we are and understanding what we're trying to get accomplished, and again, trying to reach or trying to negotiate. The city council turned it over to the mayor's office in the FOP contract and what we're trying to do. So I've had expectations in seeing how everything is moving around. I'm not surprised of where the challenges have been able to all of a sudden arise and come to, and understanding that when tough spots are happening, tough things are happening, occurring, where responsibilities will be assumed or where responsibilities will be taken at. So I fully get it, but I am the person that I fully speak, and I think the mayor's pretty clear. He understands. I think through the last 10 years, I've fully spoken to him, and I've told him each and every time, always, that he would get from me being blunt and just being honest, and I've let him know at that time, and that's what I definitely did here on August 11th, and I stand by what I'm saying and where I'm at. And wouldn't change anything at all, especially over the last 10 years of what we had to do here in Jeffersonville and what I've had to tell him at different points in time. So feel really good about it.
Chief, I know you're still smiling, but you've been popular with the men and women of the police department. What were their comments after you told them or broke the news to them?
Well, I've broken to some here or there, and it's kind of coming out, and unfortunately, I'm not being able to pull it out, but I think that without further ado, I wanted to be able to express and do this publicly here this way, so I could be able to get some information out and to be out and to be publicly candid and to share this forward. And then whatever messages then come after behind this. So I was expecting something to come out, but not. But we just did a meeting. We did a meeting shortly after about 1:15, 1:30, and then here's where we are. And I've been able to come back and do some communication with some people that necessary, but I called this here at 3:30 to be able to do to share this information publicly, because I definitely want it out there, and I don't want it presented or written by someone else. I want to be able to share this. And I also wanted to be able to, if anyone wants a copy of the letter that I gave him on August 11th, I've got copies, and to be able to share this, what I recommended about some of the things coming up in the FOP contract and the schedule, and then whatever's going to come about with that becomes about. But at least the public, the citizens, everyone knows, and the officers know with the FOP, they knew exactly where I stood with it, and that's what you have to be prepared to do. Dr. Reed said you always have to understand the position, the capacity that you have. You have to be willing to know when there's a time that you're going to step away and you're not going to do this forever. And I understood and I knew that. So with pleasure, joy, and completion, I feel really good to be able to stand before you today to say that I'm no longer going to be the chief of police, and I'm going to be moving over to my permanent captain's rank here at the Jeffersonville Police Department.
Have you had any conversations with Scott about this transition?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. He was,
What?
yeah, he was there. So that is where, you know, the department, what he has to do, and the mayor's asked of him to do some things, and he has my full support. It's going to be a tough challenge, and I think realistically, I've put where we are here and what you can't do. So he's, you know, he's in that role and duty and responsibility. That's something for me. It's not going to be possible. We are where we are today, and there's other elected officials a year ago made commitments, and they made commitments otherwise. And obviously, that was prior to Senate Bill 1, but those elected officials made those commitments, and I think where we are here today, again, I understand dealing this job and dealing with elected officials and people, but we've got some challenges and the impossible. But your character of who you are when things are they're good and fine, that's easy. Your character of who you are when you're adverse and there's challenging times, that's who we want to look and we want to judge and see the people who they are and how they handle. So for me, this is not adverse. This is actually good for me to stand. But for what the city has to do with the leadership, let's see what happens. Let's see exactly what occurs through these challenging times, and we can legislate and blame all these people here. How are you going to lead? Okay, and that's what I want to see. I'm a voter of the city, and been a lifelong resident. My family has friends, and that's what we need to look at. We need to see what those leaders are going to do, and you got to be forward. You got to be honest with people. Can't finger point, but your commitment and contracts. You make contracts. It's your word, it's your bond. So can you keep contracts or can you break them? Can you go back? You know, obviously we've seen the city of Jeffersonville recently. So again, but this is where I am here with this, and feel really good and able to speak, and feel really good about this.
So an extended portion there from the now former police chief in Jeffersonville, Kenny Cavanaugh. I just wanted to show you a bit of a snippet. This is sort of, it's hard to read though, but it is the official release from Mayor Mike Moore's office talking about that leadership change in Jeffersonville Police. And there's a graphic here I can also set up for you. But Mayor Moore says he's going to start the search for a permanent chief right away. Part of what he had sent out is a quote I'll read here. "I've concluded we need a change in leadership in the department in light of the ongoing financial pressures facing the city. Quote, some very difficult decisions will need to be made to ensure that our city remains fiscally sound while continuing to provide a top-notch police department. I want to thank Kenny for his valuable service during his over 10 years as chief." So that's part of the statement from Mayor Mike Moore. This was the letter, by the way, that now former Chief Cavanaugh was referencing, what he had sent to the mayor on August 11th. And this is just so you can see the paper version. That's something we can cite to, by the way, if you check out our full story on wave3.com. But in this letter, Cavanaugh references perhaps his concerns with overtime spending and sort of the police department's budget in itself, and how it'll be affected, as he has mentioned, by a lack of what is some forecast revenue from SB 1 and how that reformatted local governments and the tax revenues they're able to use for their own respective budgets. So something to keep in mind there as we go about the week and the months ahead, and something definitely for the community in Indiana, how that is going to potentially affect all these different city and county services. All right, moving on to another story tonight. We're staying over in Indiana, and this is a former bail bondsman we've now learned was convicted of human trafficking for exploiting female inmates. So that was the official charge stated, and now a full conviction, as we have learned in the Wave newsroom. As I'm looking up some more things I wanted to set up here. Okay. Man's name, Anthony Stout, convicted of 13 charges of abuse, intimidation that happened over the course of several years. Prosecutors laid out there that the abuse started as far back as December of 2017 when it all stopped is when two women reported what was happening. Marion County prosecutors say Stout extorting women in jail as inmates by leveraging his position as a bail bondsman to exchange sexual favors for those bonds. If they refused, he would then threaten to kill them or revoke their bonds and take away their freedom. But in the end, a jury found Stout guilty after just a 5-day trial. All right, moving on to stories and a large-scale project where, if you know or are familiar coming downtown and just how long Dosker Manor, for example, has been as far as a building presence there in this part of the community. At this point, around 160 people are still living there, but they are now going to be required to move. That is no longer a choice for them to stay there. The Metro Housing Authority says it did receive financial or final approval from the Department of Housing to fully demolish the building. The building has been plagued by records of poor conditions, which we've, of course, reported on in the past. Voluntary relocation, it started in July of 2024, and since then, hundreds of people have moved to different kinds of housing, maybe newer, maybe safer options. So with the formal approval now in place, again, the relocations are no longer voluntary. They are mandatory for the around 160 people who are still at Dosker Manor.
We take them to the site to tour properties to make sure it's what they really want, to make sure they know what they're getting into. We make sure that their rent's not going to go up because they're going to have a public housing unit or a voucher. So we're doing everything. We're not changing those resources. We'll still have those resources, but at some point we'll have to say, you got 90 days. These are your options. You have 90 days to pick one. We're going to help you get there.
And so that was LMHA's executive director there, Elizabeth Strojan. So Metro Housing says that it's going to demolish the 3 high-rise buildings as they exist right now on property at Dosker Manor. On top of that, they would build new affordable housing. Redevelopment would also happen at the former First Link site. As for those relocations, LMHA is hoping
We
to
take them to the
conduct
site
all
to
of
tour
that. Conduct all of that around the end of this year. Okay. Moving on to another big story and a sort of the kind of story that would get those conversations going. If you remember when we broke the story about JCPS's milk leaving a funny taste in students' mouths, that was what we first learned yesterday. But now we're hearing from the dairy producer, the dairy vendor, for the first time, explaining what actually happened. So credit to our Wave News troubleshooter, Mark Stevens, with what he learned this afternoon. He's telling us Prairie Farms took over the contract from an old supplier after that previous vendor pulled out in July, saying that they had lost their distributor. So that's part of the explanation. Now, as far as the funny tasting milk was concerned, a spokesperson from Prairie Farms sent us a statement blaming a variety of different issues. So on one hand, she talked about the combination of last week's extreme temperatures. She talked about extended delivery times. She also talked about storage challenges that sort of all came together to compromise those products served in the schools. The company also telling us delivery procedures, they've been reinforced to make sure those heat-related risks are minimized, and that protocols that monitor the milk's temperatures, those get strengthened and stay up to that standard they say they have. Part of the quote here from Prairie Farms spokesperson saying, while not all schools experienced issues, we believe this collaborative approach ensures confidence in product quality moving forward, end quote. JCPS also says Prairie Farms expects to have a new shipment of milk delivered to all schools, fresh new batch of milk by Wednesday of next week. So certainly for the kids, however few or many had tested that and unfortunately, had to, encounter that experience just to get rid of this prior batch to then make sure the new supply of milk is good for all students to consume out there at school. All right, we are at 8:20. Time to reset for a quick commercial break. Talk about more headlines and stories as we're unwinding from this Thursday. So hope you stick around after this brief pause. We'll be right back on Wave Extra. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to tonight's edition of Wave Extra. Perhaps some of you joining us here among the Wave Extra community enjoy going out to enjoy some live music, concerts, festivals in particular, and the big ones that attract not just those big artists and names to the Louisville Metro, but of course, so many people who are coming to spend a weekend or two. You might all, who are more seasoned veterans of concert going, tell the rookies that navigating a music festival could be hard work if you're not prepared, don't know your way around. Turns out Bourbon and Beyond, so that organizing team says they wanted to make it easier by releasing their daily music schedule in a way that was pretty easily digestible. Now, if you're familiar with the layout, this is just some old footage of past Bourbon and Beyonds. Reminder, we were the first to send out those the set lists that were dropped this morning. That is going to be all up on wave3.com. And you can actually track when your favorite performers are going to hit the stage in that manner. Reminder, headliners for Bourbon and Beyond include acts like the Lumineers, Fish, Benson Boone, the Goo Goo Dolls. Bourbon and Beyond going to be at the Highland Festival grounds at the Kentucky Expo Center from September 11th through the 14th. Festival passes are still available. What I wanted to lay out for you here as a reminder too, by the way, if I can set up the source, is that we've done the same kind of layout for you if you're familiar with Louder Than Life. That's coming up also soon, more or less right after Bourbon and Beyond. You see that timeline there, September 18th through the 21st, and you can see from Thursday, breaks down the main stage 1 and 2, the times each of these big acts are coming. So we're talking for you, Louder Than Life, these metal and rock fans of Slayer, Rob Zombie, Lamb of God. We're talking extending further down here into Friday's lineup, Avenged Sevenfold and Breaking Benjamin, All Time Low. But you see kind of lower or further into the day. Those nighttime shows making room for those headliners there. But just a great resource for the two big festivals in town coming back-to-back weekends there for you on wave3.com. I'm going to bring myself back here right now to set up more of the big story. So we were actually, in a way, talking about some upcoming big-scale festivals there. Now there seems to be sort of a question mark for one that's a much smaller affair, but it's been a long-standing tradition. We're talking about Jazz in Central Park. Been happening, entertaining music lovers for about 30 years. but it sounds like this year's performance, when that's going to happen, is in doubt. So Wave News reporter David Mattingly spent the day looking into claims of why under-budgeting might have contributed to the overall problem. This was an annual affair organized by the Metro Council District 6 office. That's been more or less the expectation in the time this has been at a community event. And first-term Councilman J.P. Linninger apparently now trying to make the event happen after he says things fell apart. So this is the report from our David Mattingly.
On Sunday, the 2025 Jazz in Central Park was supposed to fill the park with music and people. Instead, the stage will be silent, the seats will be empty, and the Metro councilman tasked with making it happen will be trying to pull off a Hail Mary.
What people need to know about the event is it's not going to happen this weekend. It is going to happen this year. We're going to figure it out. We are committed to rescheduling Jazz in Central Park, and it has never been our intention to not have one in 2025.
District 6 Councilman J.P. Linninger is struggling with damage control. Vessel Management, producer of the event, declared Jazz in Central Park postponed until 2026. In a letter to Linninger, Vessel Management's Tommy Jones referenced poor planning, saying, "When you shared that the budget had been reduced to $9,000, I expressed with sincerity that it would be nearly impossible to deliver the quality the community has come to expect." On social media, Linninger said, "The decision to postpone the event was made without my office being consulted before, and we did everything possible to keep it on the original date."
Yeah, it's a little frustrating. Like I said, this came up because of a discussion that we had with the Parks Department where we're trying to figure out, okay, what fees do we need to be on top of? You know, how can we make sure this happens? And then things just kind of fell apart.
Each year, Jazz in Central Park typically draws 5,000 to 6,000 people to the one-day event. The predominantly black audience has made it a Louisville cultural tradition. Its importance not lost on the district's first white councilman.
It's no secret that this is probably the blackest event that happens in Central Park. This brings people from the West End to Central Park, and we're able to come together as a community, and this is an important cultural event.
All right, thanks to David Mattingly for that update. So we've also learned the producer of the event told us Councilman Linninger waited until the 11th hour. So that's his statement that Linninger waited until then to collect sponsorships for the event, something that he argues was normally happening 6 months earlier, prior to that August show date. But Linninger maintains Jazz in Central Park is going to happen just later on in the year. As we're going to reset, talk about more stories, headlines, breakdowns for you on this Thursday night. We're going to take a quick pause, be right back with much more Wave Extra after this break. Welcome back in tonight. Wave Extra here in the Wave Now studio. Jose Sosaya as we unwind tonight's big stories, headlines, and events. Part of that is an update, of course, on a horrifying crime scene and revelation as prosecutors are laying out a case out of Jeffersonville because the man accused of killing and beheading his own father is going to be moved to a state facility, we've now learned, after officials telling the court that he keeps harming himself while in custody and jail. Wave News reporter Fernando Garcia Francescini is staying on top of the case. He was in court this morning and shares more details about this particular transfer.
In court, we heard from the Clark County Sheriff's Office Assistant Chief. He spoke in further detail about what Bryce Winicky has been doing to himself while in jail and how they're trying to keep him from harming himself. Colonel Mark Grube says that injury to Winicky's head is a result of him hitting it against the concrete floor. But Grube says Winicky has tried several times to remove the stitches he got because of that injury. Grube says that has forced jail officials to restrain him in a chair for about 24 hours. This is why the prosecution asked for Winicky to be transferred to the custody of the Indiana Department of Corrections. Part of the Winicky family was in court this morning supporting Bryce.
This is one of the most tragic things that I've seen in 40 years, a situation where you have such a close family who has such love for one another, to have this type of event occur and have what from the outside may look like an impossible way to embrace Bryce and at the same time grieve the father.
Defense attorney Larry Wilder says Winicky will most likely be transferred to a facility in Newcastle or Logansport. Wilder says the transfer should happen within the next few days. Reporting in Clark County, Fernando Garcia Francescini, Wave News.
Heading over to another community that's grieving tonight as they honored the life of a 10-year-old boy who we've since discovered was found killed. This was out in Breathitt County. 10-year-old Jaden Spicer, which is a story we've been covering now for at least since the story first broke. If you're familiar with the details, Jaden, unfortunately, been tragically found in a shallow grave August 12th, almost a week after other family members reported he was missing. And since then, the big revelations, his mother, Felicia Gross, and her husband now both facing charges in his death. We know a visitation and funeral happened for young Jaden today. The Breathitt County Fiscal Court proclaimed August 21st of 2025 officially as Jaden Spicer Day. You saw a little bit of the tributes there, the community honoring him with a balloon release, those little pictures, tributes, memories of what Jaden meant to everyone who came to join in grieving. So Jaden Spicer would have turned 11 this fall. And moving on to another story tonight, for the first time since this chaos unfolded, we're hearing from the Kentucky State Trooper who was shot near Lexington's airport, and what he says is a reminder, no traffic stop for officers is ever routine. That is how he puts it. The suspect would then go to a church to kill 2 women and injure 2 more men. Reporter Phil Pendleton sat down to talk to the trooper as he is recovering and thanking the community he says has supported him from the very beginning.
Trooper Jude Remillion works out of the Frankfurt Post, and on July the 13th, he was in Lexington, and he was simply responding to a traffic stop. But soon he found himself shot and fighting for his life.
No traffic stop is a routine traffic stop.
Trooper Jude Remillion says he learned that in training, and it became reality outside Bluegrass Airport on Terminal Drive. He had pulled over a car after receiving a be on the lookout for, or BOLO, report of a driver with multiple warrants. He says during the stop, the shooting happened so fast, but he says he's trained to react under pressure and to remain calm. Within minutes, he says Good Samaritans came to his aid. 4 people rushed to help him.
It was just God sent, and one of them was actually a nurse, so it just worked out perfect.
He suffered a very serious leg injury, but the tourniquet may have saved his life. In the weeks since, support has arrived from all over the country.
So I received a huge amount of letters and cards, and it's just humbling just to see how the community just comes together in a moment like this.
Trooper Remillion says that he will be starting physical therapy soon. He says he's really not sure on the process to return to active duty. He says that is a major part of his prayer life. In Frankfort, Phil Pendleton, WKYT.
And one more thing as we thank Phil Pendleton for that update is that Trooper Ramillion, we know the people who helped him in that emergency to save his life were subsequently named Kentucky colonels by Governor Beshear. Ramillion telling reporters today that he really wants to meet those people who helped him out himself so they can bond and that he can express his gratitude for what they did. All right, we're going to take one last break as we sort of wrap up everything in our digesting the big stories, not just here in Louisville, but across the Commonwealth and in all our communities, extending past the metro, of course. We'll be right back with much more of Wave Extra after this. Appreciate you joining us tonight on Wave Extra, whether that's been through our social media stream channels on Facebook, X, Twitch, YouTube, or on the Wave Now app on your smart TVs. Always appreciate you spending tonight's time as you're sort of unwinding, unpacking the evening, on this case, Thursday, August 21st, here in the Wave Now studio. Walking through some stories, in particular one has been of particular interest to a lot of you who've tried to book those appointments for driver's licenses, try to get those real ID updates, but of course, trying to find a solution to make it as streamlined a process as possible for Kentuckians. A state representative now going on record to renew her push to get rid of the state's regional driver's license office model and instead return these services to county offices themselves. And a reminder of maybe the signs you've been seeing, of course, trying to get in those lines, get those appointments. This is Representative Savannah Maddox, who added recent fraud allegations as another reason why the state of Kentucky should abandon the regional system model and move driver's license services back to those circuit clerk offices for all 120 counties. Now, Maddox referring, of course, to an ongoing investigation, which we've been on top of reporting as well, allegations of temporary workers in these regional offices giving IDs to undocumented immigrants in exchange for $200 a piece. You're seeing the number of licenses that had been revoked as a result of that revelation. Here's more of what Representative Maddox had to say, though, as far as solving the bigger problem for Kentuckians as she sees it.
No longer should Kentuckians have to wait months to make an appointment, drive 2 or 3 counties over, wait all day in line, many times having taken off work just to receive a driver's license 3 to 4 weeks later in the mail.
You saw the numbers there a little bit on the licenses revoked. Governor Beshear confirmed those were revoked. Some temporary workers were ultimately fired. Maddox is proposing legislation in which driver's licenses, again, would return to circuit clerks, though not county clerks, to make that distinction. She is hoping that measure passes sometime next year. So on that front, looking at those sort of policy statewide issues for Kentuckians in that regard. Now, we also have heard of lawmakers in Kentucky, we're talking at the federal level and also at the state level, taking a tour now across the state to defend Medicaid funding and access, and to talk about how past and supported federal cuts are going to harm Kentuckians. This is a tour that stopped in Louisville at Up for Women and Children on South 2nd Street, being run by mostly Kentucky Democratic Party leaders. And we'll take you to the location where that happened, Uniting Partners for Women and Children. This stop specifically, though, we heard the politicians focus on maternal and infant health because they say Medicaid covers roughly half of all births in Kentucky. Among the speakers was Congressman Morgan McGarvey, sharing what he said was his personal experience of twins being born at just 26 weeks for him. And hopefully we can play that video for you right here.
35 rural hospitals are set to close in Kentucky, more than any other state. 130,000 rural Kentuckians are set to lose their health care, more than any other state. We will lose $12 billion in Medicaid funding over the next 10 years, more than any other state. Jobs will be lost. More importantly, lives will be lost. We have to do better. We have to do more, because otherwise, our future is quite literally at risk.
The politicians, lawmakers' next stop on the tour is going to be in Bowling Green on September 2nd. Speakers there say they're going to talk about Medicaid cuts affecting disabled people and their families in Kentucky. And one more thing for you tonight. This is courtesy of our Wave News anchor Dawn G and her segment that she loves to, help folks out there trying to make their budgets work as best as they can. For now, you can make some energy-efficient upgrades to your home while still getting federal tax credits that can add up to a lot of money if you work out the math well. It's a great way to, she says, make ends meet in so many ways. So Dawn had a chance to talk to a executive of a North American Insulation Manufacturers Association to talk about just what this could mean for finances and family if this is a project you've been considering. And here's what Dawn was able to discuss with her interview.
89% of homes in the U.S. are under-insulated.
Insulation expert Patrick Kiker is vice president of the nonprofit North American Insulation Manufacturers Association, or NAMA. Kiker's on a mission to not only share cost-saving tips on insulation, but he's also trying to put a little money back in your pocket. $1,200.
So the 25C energy efficient home tax credits is available now until December 31st at the end of the year.
The 25C tax credit for energy efficient home improvements is scheduled to expire for any project placed in service after December 31st, 2025, according to the One Big Beautiful Bill Act signed in July 2025.
The tax credit will cover 30% of material costs, up to $1,200 for air sealing and insulation materials.
That means with this tax credit, homeowners can claim a rebate for qualifying energy efficient improvements like windows, doors, insulation, and HVAC systems. Kiker says for insulation, there's two ways to make efficient improvements in your home.
Probably the easiest way is to work with a home contractor. Just make sure that you ask them to air seal as well while they're up there to make sure that you're getting the most out of your insulation.
Option two, if you're a DIYer, you can do it yourself.
Or you could go up there to your attic and measure it yourself, and you could find out how much insulation you need, and then you could head down to your closest big box store and buy the insulation yourself.
Make sure to save your receipts. You must claim the credit for the tax year when the item is installed, not merely purchased. Keep all receipts and documentation for the upgrades you make to your home and itemize.
You really want to make sure your home is fully insulated so you can get all the benefits of insulation.
And there are quite a few.
So you might see up to 15% savings on your heating and cooling bills, according to another study by the Department of Energy. A more energy efficient home is a more comfortable home. Studies have shown that higher energy efficient homes have higher resale values.
The big headline, don't put off today what won't be here tomorrow. What was originally established and extended through 2032 now has an end date and it's very near.
It's going to go away in December 31st, and you could get up to $1,200, off your taxes.
So our thanks to Dawn G for breaking all that down. Always appreciate that, Dawn. Just good to find those ways if you've been thinking about adding that insulation and in some ways, upgrading your home if that's something on your radar. A reminder, Dawn's story and so much more is on our website, wave3.com. You can see, of course, the big stories of the day at the very top. You can scroll right down, of course, through our other top headlines. Dawn's stories and conversations are very easy to access too through our news tab, but just great resources to have on top of also getting those push alerts sent to your phone by downloading the Wave News app and the Wave Weather app whenever there's the forecast on your mind, whether it is an emergency situation or not. All right, that's going to do it for us tonight as I look at the clock, 8:46. Always appreciate everyone's time as we again say unwinding for the evening and preparing for any more news and breakdowns and investigations, as we will be here at Wave News at 11 to share that information and make sure you're informed as we go into Friday and closer to the weekend. So appreciate everyone's time. I'm Jose Sosaya in the Wave Now studio. We'll see you here tomorrow night. Thank you.